Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. Bottled charisma. 8 fragrances that make you more attractive. Charisma is a very difficult thing to define, but I finally figured it out when I realized that certain charismatic people, when I hung out with them, I felt a little bit better about myself than I do with the average person, and I always went away feeling really good. And there are a lot of parallels between charisma and charismatic people and people that wear fragrances, because it's essentially the same thing. Especially where I live, not a lot of people wear fragrances. So when they hang around me and I always smell good. There's always going to be something about me that's a little bit better than everybody else. Nobody knows people more than salesmen. They have to know people. That's their job. And when it comes to real estate agents, if they're showing a house, they regularly will bake cookies. So the whole experience, including the scent, is a part of selling the house. Now, when it comes to the type of fragrance, you don't want to red tobacco people. You don't want to blow them away. You want it to be a little bit more subconscious. So you want something that is mass appealing and pleasant. Those are the kind of fragrances we're talking about today. Let's get to it. Fragrance number 1, this is Prada Luna Rossa Carbon. And this fragrance combines 2 things that are really important. 1, it really works for me, and 2, that I really love. The first thing is it has the Dior Sauvage DNA. And when it comes to compliments, from my personal experience, that gets more compliments than any other DNA that I've worn. It's a combination of ambroxan, black pepper, and citrus, usually bergamot, and it's all here. The second component, though, is one that I truly love. This is a Prada fragrance. So they've taken that Dior Sauvage DNA and they've done what Prada does. They've added the patented Prada lavender. They've added metallic notes and watery notes, smoothed out the whole Dior Sauvage DNA, and made it wearable, especially for mature men like myself. If I was ever to date again, God forbid, this would be the fragrance that I would wear, guaranteed. Fragrance number 2 is Bond Number 9's Bleeker Street. And as somebody that's seen hundreds, if not 1,000 YouTube videos on men's fragrances, Bond Number 9 is not a popular house. I don't hear about it much, but I hear a ton about Bleeker Street. This is the one standout fragrance they have because it combines 3 critical components. Number 1, it's super original. It doesn't smell like anything else. Number 2, it smells nice. People like it. And number 3, the performance, projection, and longevity are both really good. What makes it interesting, though, is the fact that it's got 3 separate components that are all a little bit different. Number 1, it's ozonic. So it's kind of light. It's got the violet leaf, a fair amount of it. Number 2 is the fruity component that's a little bit different. It's blueberry, and I don't know too many fragrances with blueberry notes in them, but it is definitely there. The third one, though, might be the kicker. The 3 aromatic notes. There are oak moss, thyme, and black currant leaves, also called cassis. Cassis basically smells like cat piss. So it's got an ammonia quality that is pungent. Now, that doesn't sound super pleasant, but bear in mind, this kind of cherry on top idea with something strange at the top, that's been done before. Noir Extreme is the same deal. Noir Extreme is a beautiful warm fragrance that has mastic, which has a turpentine quality to it that adds a little bit of a kicker, a little bit of a cherry on top that makes it different and interesting. The cassis on this makes it interesting. There is a little bit of an ammonia feel. It's a bizarre fragrance. It is really well-rounded. But the main thing about it, and for this list, is it's pleasant. People will like it. People will smell it, but it's not going to overwhelm them. Fragrance number 3, this is Jean-Paul Gaultier's Male Le Parfum. And unlike Bleeker Street, this fragrance, there's really, in terms of the notes, there's really nothing special here. You know, you look at the notes, well, it's got vanilla, it's got cardamom and some other oriental notes, right? So spiciness. And then it's got some lavender. What's the big deal? The big deal is if you've ever done any cooking and you've put a lot of ingredients in a pot, it's really difficult to get them just right. That's what this does. It is a perfectly blended, warm and sweet and pleasing, just the right amount of vanilla, the right amount of cardamom, the right amount of lavender. I don't get any iris from this. Supposedly it's in it. I don't get any of it at all, but all the other notes are there and it smells really good. The performance is fine, but it's not in your face. This is a perfect fragrance for, I mean, if you wore this every day, it might be the most charismatic fragrance on the market. Fragrance number 4, this is Perry Ellis Midnight. And what Perry Ellis and a lot of inexpensive fragrance houses will do is they will copy the DNA of a very popular fragrance and recreate it and make it cheaper. In this case, they did that with Azzaro's Most Wanted, which is the most popular fragrance in the Wanted line. And I always look for 3 potential problems when a fragrance house will do that. Number 1, how bad is the performance? And it's usually terrible. Number 2, is it going to be similar to the original? And number 3, how synthetic is it going to be? Is it going to be super bad synthetic, or is it just going to be acceptable level? This fragrance passed on all 3 criteria, especially performance. The longevity in this is 6 hours minimum. That's on my skin, but it's really good performance. The projection is great. It has a little bit of a synthetic vibe, but not too much. It's like you're paying $40 for a fragrance. You're going to expect, a little bit less and more than acceptable. And then in terms of the copy, they did an interesting thing. The Most Wanted is part of a line that it's got mandarin, cinnamon, and vanilla, right? But the Most Wanted left out the mandarin note. What they did was they captured the feel of the Most Wanted, but left in the mandarin note, so to make it a little bit more like Wanted by Night. So it's a little bit of a twist. Mostly it smells like the Most Wanted. They did a really good job. It smells really nice. It's a vanilla and amber combination, but this comes off mostly ambery. Fits this category perfectly. It's very charismatic. It's not going to blow you away with projection. It's just going to smell nice. And this charisma in this particular case is more for a youthful person, a younger person. The Wanted line is more of a youthful line. Fragrance number 5, this is Prada's Amber Pour Homme Intense. And this fragrance is charismatic, but it is more for a high-end kind of feel. So the Amber Pour Homme fragrance, I think, is a really charismatic work fragrance. It's really good at work. This one is more for the boardroom. Not only is this darker than Amber Pour Homme, it has a lot of myrrh and patchouli, which are both quite dark notes. This is also more high-end. So it is more of a boardroom. It is more formal. It's still charismatic. It's still really pleasant. But yeah, it is targeting a different audience. It also has a lot of amber, as you would expect. It has some labdanum in it, so a couple of resins, and a fair amount of saffron, not as much as the Amber Pour Homme fragrance. It's been discontinued, but if you can get your hands on it, do it, because it's really, really good. I probably wear this fragrance more than any other in my collection because I like it that much. Fragrance number 6, this is Zadig and Voltaire's This Is Him. And this is a really interesting, innovative take on the vanilla phenomenon, where there's a ton of vanilla in a lot of youthful fragrances. I like what they did here. Normally, you take vanilla and you put it with something pleasant. You put it with a lot of warm spiciness, usually cinnamon and black pepper. Or you put it with something fruity and pleasant. So it's pleasant and pleasant. Not this guy. This guy took a lot of vanilla and then they stuck it with something a little more challenging, which is incense. So it has a balsamic quality. Yeah, there's a little bit of black pepper in this, but it's mostly a lot of vanilla, so it's a little bit smoky, definitely very balsamic. So it takes it in a different direction. A fragrance that did a similar thing, but to a lesser degree, is Givenchy Gentleman EDP. So if you like the balsamic quality of that, then I really think you'll enjoy this. Performance is really solid. It's a fairly inexpensive fragrance as far as the modern inflation goes. You can get a tester of this for under $60. Performance is very solid. And it is vanilla, so it's still really pleasant. It's not like it's taking it in a super challenging direction. It's just a nice twist. Fragrance number 7, this is Paco Rabanne's 1 Million. And I'm going to get hell for this, but I've always loved this. I've tried one of the other flankers, but this one I really adore. Now, it doesn't perform. It's about 3 hours, but there's absolutely no question in my mind, especially for a younger man, that this is a charismatic fragrance. It's a really nice, sweet and spicy fragrance, and it's got one of the best openings of all time. There's grapefruit and mandarin in it, but it comes off as grapefruit. For that first 5 minutes or so, it's absolutely astounding. It's really good. Then you're going to get amber, which doesn't overwhelm the warm, spicy element, in this case, cinnamon, the way that vanilla does. So it balances the sweetness and the spiciness really nicely. If this thing performed better, it would still be something that everybody would be talking about today. I think that's really what they did with the flankers. They just increased the performance, but I still think the scent of this, the base of this, I mean, they built an empire on this fragrance. It definitely deserves to be in a video about charismatic fragrances. Fragrance number 8, this is Jaipur pour Homme Eau de Parfum from the house of Boucheron. And this is definitely one of the most popular fragrances that I talk about on this channel. I've learned over the years that 90% of fragrances I mention, people won't mention in the comments explicitly, but for whatever reason, everybody seems to comment about Jaipur pour Homme, and it's always positive. I mean, look, there's no reason why not. It's just a beautifully crafted fragrance. It's inexpensive. The performance is really solid for the money, well, just in general, really. And surprisingly, even though it's 25 years old, it fits in with the modern fragrances because there's a lot of vanilla in it. So it's pretty simple. You know, you've got a spicy element, a warm spicy, so nutmeg and cinnamon. You've got lemon and lemon verbena, so a citrus component, and a lot of vanilla with really good performance. Very pleasant fragrance. And yeah, it, again, charismatic. It's a little bit of a different topic today, but I firmly stand by it. I really believe that wearing a fragrance improves the experience that other people have of you, because you're always going to smell, at the very least, clean, but in most cases, smell nice. And I think on a subconscious level, over time, people think, hey, you know, I always like hanging around Joe, you know, he smells really good. And I think, you know, especially over time, they're going to have a better opinion of you in general, because these things are often subconscious. Anyway, thanks for watching.